Well, very lucky. I'm very happy to have Stan with us. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm feeling good. Surprisingly, okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Long flight?
Long flight, yeah. So there was like a 26-hour delay and then 33 hours travel to get here.
Oh.
And I got here last night at midnight, slept 4 hours, had a coffee, did a workout, and then performed.
That's what you do every day, isn't it?
It is pretty much what I
sleep
do.
4 hours, wake up, coffee,
Yeah,
exercise,
pretty much. I try and
play
sleep,
drums?
Try and sleep 6 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's very similar to my routine at home.
So why that routine?
Keeps me structured. Mm-hmm. It's really good for my head. There's probably a bit of control. I feel like I have control over my life. It's like I'm a big believer in discipline. You know, the little disciplines make the big disciplines a lot easier. And, you know, time and time again, I find that if you focus on one small thing and work on that, it impacts everything else in a major way. So my family, my relationships, my friendships, my practice on the drums, everything gets affected by one small discipline, you know?
Right.
So I just feel good about it. It makes me feel good.
How have you learned that?
I think that, well, I used to be very lazy and I used to be like a lot heavier, so overweight in my early 20s. And I still feel like I'm a lazy person. I just don't let them come out. So just over the years, just practice and repetition, you know, and just trying to take control of my mind. My mind doesn't want to get up in the morning, so I get up. My mind doesn't want to do exercise, so I exercise. You know what I mean? And I just always feel better afterwards. I'm always happy about it. So I may not want to do these things at the start, but the payoff is you're always happy afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you teach that though?
Well, small things. So I do teach it because a lot of people ask me about this stuff online, and the way that I talk about it is small changes. Mm-hmm. So if you want to make a change, don't go change 5 things at once, because it will last a week and then none of it will stick, and then you'll go back to being the same no matter what it is, whether it's diet, exercise, goals or whatever. So if you want to make real change, long change, start with one small thing. Yeah. So it could be something simple like, say you get up at 8 a.m. every day and you're like, man, I want to get up earlier. Get up at 7:30. Don't get up at 5. Get up at 7:30 for a week. And then once you've done that, you know, maybe get up at 6 or, you know, bring it back, but little bits at a time. That's how you practice it.
Yeah. Because a lot of people like go on these crazy diets.
Yeah.
But they don't last. So they go back to however they were before.
And I've done that as well.
Yeah.
I've done, you know, in my 20s, when I first started experimenting with this sort of stuff, I would do crazy diets and I would do like crazy exercises, and I would run 70 kilometers a week, every week, and like no sugar and only meat or, you know, like whatever the thing was. And just over time, I enjoyed all these things, the extreme stuff, but there's no longevity in the extreme.
Yeah.
And so then I've just been working on, I'm 38 now, so maybe just practice and balance. Because I'm married, I still like to enjoy food and wine with my wife and have a tequila with a friend. And when you're extreme, you can't do any of that shit, right. You know? So it's, you know, we're here to live and enjoy life. So you've got to find the balance, you know?
You mentioned that people ask you stuff online. Is there something, and I asked the same question to Carter, is there something that you feel that you don't get asked about enough? That you wish you got asked more?
No, not really.
Not really?
Nah.
What about something that you get asked too much?
Oh, well, I mean, the kick technique.
Yeah.
My foot technique.
Have you ever thought about, I don't want to be remembered as the foot guy?
Absolutely. That's why I completely changed the way that I did my social media. So when I started putting videos online, maybe 5 years ago, I stopped touring at that time, which is why I started putting stuff on social media, because it was an outlet. It was a way to express myself. My kids were young, didn't want to tour anymore, and then I started sharing videos of my foot technique, and the videos spread real fast. So everyone was sharing them. My companies were sharing them. And then I was getting lots of followers and lots of messages and comments, and it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But people started calling me the guy with the foot. And I was like, the guy with the foot? I was like, yeah, I get it, because I've got a foot. But I'd been a professional drummer for 10 or 15 years before that, touring and doing all that. But I mean, no, these people didn't know that, you know. And all my videos were like chops and foot technique because I was enjoying it. But then once it got really big, I didn't want to be remembered like that or seen. I didn't want to be seen as only that in the drum community. So I started deleting those videos and sharing other stuff. So when I'm at gigs, showing the gigs, material that I'm working on, the process of working on, photos, sharing the mindset stuff and my stories and whatnot, and completely changed the way I do my social media to a place now where I'm just real happy with it, you know? And so now, now people can see that, I have a foot and I like to do some chops and stuff, but I'm a musician first and foremost. I'm a working musician, you know? And I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, you were already an influence to me. That's what I remember.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a big Kimbra fan.
Oh,
so
really?
those sessions, like I watched them.
Sessions.
I watched them and like played along for a long time.
Oh,
like
really?
when they came out. Yeah,
I played a Kimbra song today.
Did you?
Yeah,
I didn't get to see.
I played Two-Way Street with the tambourine.
Great song.
Yeah, it is a great song, and I love that song because of the contrast of it.
Yeah,
because the song that I played prior to that, today, is like a 6-minute fusion prog song, and I'm doing all the things, and I love that band, and I love that. And then I went from that to just, you know, and I loved that playing that song as well. And I really enjoyed playing with Kimbra.
To be fair, I saw her live without a drummer.
Oh, where?
Yeah.
Recently, like in the last few years?
Yeah, it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, she did a tour like acoustic, which is keys and double bass.
Just her and someone else, or 2 other people?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she does that pretty much now, I think, too.
It was great.
Yeah, you enjoyed it?
Yeah, that was amazing drummer.
Yeah. You did you prefer the band version of Kimbra or?
I never got to see that live.
Oh, okay.
So obviously the live performances, you know, you treat those differently. But
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. So I cannot say.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say.
That's so cool. You like Kimbra. How did you find Kimbra? Being all the way up here.
I just really liked someone that I used to know.
Oh, go to
But him, I didn't get to listen that much of him, but I got to listen to a lot of her, and I really liked it.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, well, those videos that you talk about, I'm real proud of them. That's probably 12 years ago now.
Yeah,
I'd say.
So even without the foot thing, I was still
cool. Yeah, that's before the foot. And those videos, man, they've all had like 5-6 million views, and you know, just kick, floor tom, snare drum. That's it, man.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Like those kind of videos made me buy brushes.
Oh, cool.
Like,
yeah, cool, too. Man. Yeah, I use brushes.
It's not just for jazz.
That's so right. Yeah, wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I forgot. I did use brushes in those, yeah. Cool, man.
Talking about social media, you posted the other day a post saying, choose your influences wisely, and that's not specifically drum related.
Yeah.
Can you unpack that?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually wrote that while I was traveling to Auckland before I flew out. I think about this stuff a lot because the way that I live my life now is I've got like a real good control over the influences that come into my life. Like I don't watch the news. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to things that I don't want to listen to that don't impact me in a positive way. I have certain people that I like to listen to on a daily basis because of the message and the mindset that it puts me in. But it was more, I think the problem that I see, listen to me, the problem that I see in the world, no, but I think that people just very, very absent-mindedly have noise coming at them and they don't control it. So if you go onto my social media, everyone's muted. So on my Instagram, if you open up my Instagram, it's just black, just a black page.
Yeah.
I can't see any posts. I can't see any stories unless I go into the profile, but I've muted everything. And that took a really long time because Instagram does not want you to mute everyone. And it's not because I don't like everyone. It's not because I don't enjoy everyone. It's because I don't want things hitting me without wanting to engage in it, you know? I'm a firm believer in the power of the subconscious mind and how much we take on. And with COVID and, you know, the wars and all this sort of stuff, it's just like bam, 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 bam. And I don't need to be hit with that on a daily basis, you know? So choose your influences carefully, because you'll be really surprised at how much that stuff affects you without even realizing. So for me, it's more just making sure that the influences that you're connecting with on a daily basis are decisions that you have made about things that are going to impact you in a positive way. It could be watching your favorite chef. It could be listening to a personal development coach. It could be watching your favorite drum video. You know, it doesn't matter where the influence comes from, but my point is more about the engaging in it. I made the decision to listen to that. It wasn't just thrown at me. Yeah.
Problem is, every once in a while, Instagram, for example, is clever enough to show me something that I really actually dig, and I find something new, and then
I know.
Yeah, but
I know. No, you're right. Totally.
But I do the same thing as you. I mute everything.
Oh, do you?
Because I want to choose what I want to consume, same as you.
When you want to do it. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, that way I'm watching this because I actually want to.
Yeah, and
rather than
in relation to that post this year in particular, like for the last few years, I've been really interested in the mind and like the discipline stuff and like self-control and all of that. I really, really enjoy it, the pursuit of that, and it's endless. But this year in particular, I found a few people online that really they really encapsulate that stuff the way that I was thinking. And so I listened to these people, and they're essentially personal development people.
Feel free to drop names.
Nah, I don't want to, because it's like...
Right.
It's so personal. Not because it's like I don't want you to know, but my people might not be your people. You know, so people, you find your influences when you need them. You know, you go looking and you find your people, and it usually comes from a bit of research. I don't like that. Oh man, I don't like their voice or whatever it is. You know, and so I've just found a few people this year in particular, and man, it's just made such an amazing impact on me. Like I feel amazing pretty much 99.9% of the time.
That's great.
I listen to things every day. I do things every day, little routines and things that, you know, keep me in a really, really centered place. I suppose it's like versions of meditation and things like that, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that resonates with me.
Oh, cool.
But I want you to drop names.
Okay, well, I can tell you.
Okay.
A lot of the older guys. So Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale is a broadcaster from the 1950s. He was a radio broadcaster, but he did personal development as well.
Right.
He actually released the first audiobook, the very, very first one. So it was a book that was written, that was converted into an audiobook, and you could get it on vinyl. And it's only like 25 minutes long. It's called The Stranger's Secret. And The Stranger's Secret is just basically you become what you think about. So choose what you think about very carefully. But it's explained in such an eloquent, beautiful way. And he's got a radio voice from the 1950s. And it's very much like this. And it's just real striking and captivating, you know. So he's one of my guys. Napoleon Hill, who wrote a book in 1933 called Think and Grow Rich, which is not just about rich in the financial sense, but rich in like life and abundance and friendships. And so early guys, you know? Yeah, I like the early stuff.
Okay, happy with that. Take that.
Cool.
I've got so many things I want to... Right. Big mental health guy, and then?
Yeah. Like that's what
always been, or is it a recent thing?
Well, no, I'd say
consciously, at least.
Consciously, since my early 20s. In my teens, I did not care about any of that. I was having drinks and like, you know, enjoying my teenage years. But I had my son when I was quite young. I had my son when I was 19. And as soon as I had my son, I just started to look at the world a little bit differently. And that started my journey, essentially. And my mum, she had severe mental health issues. She's not around anymore, and she had quite a lot of problems with it. And so I think living with someone who'd been through so much and was going through so much on a daily basis and seeing that made me very aware of it and hypersensitive to making sure that I look after myself. It's probably part of the reason why I exercise, I eat well, and all of these things, because I've seen the other side of it and where it can go, you know? Yeah.
Is your son learning from that, or is he?
Yeah, my son's pretty good. He's 18 now, and he's a very conscious kid. Like, he's a thinker.
Nice.
He's really, really influenced by the stuff that I do as well. And he's very driven, very committed, you know. He's a great drummer as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So plays Winston probably.
He does, yeah, he does, yeah.
What about fasting though?
Yep. So done a lot of fasting. I still do a lot of fasting these days as well. I've been fasting for over 10 years now. In some
So
shape.
you haven't eaten in 10 years?
No, yeah, I have not eaten in 10 years. No, I've been experimenting with fasting for about 10 years now. And for me, it's about self-control, management of, because I love to eat. Mm-hmm. I love to eat, man. And I can just eat and eat and eat and eat. So it's just a good way to control that, and helps control the weight. And it's really good for the mind as well, man. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what are some of the non-negotiables that have to be in your life in order for you to...
I've got 3.
All right.
Yeah, exercise, reading, and practice on my drums. So that's my stuff. So I read every day.
Nice.
I exercise every day in some shape or form. And I practice my drums every day in some shape or form. So that could be play my drum kit, or that could be the practice pad, one or the other. And man, that could be 3 hours, or it could be 5 minutes. Doesn't matter. It's about how I feel. But those 3 things, reading, exercise, and practice, those are my 3 non-negotiables for myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Very clear answers.
Yeah, because I have thought about that, that's how I refer to it too. My non-negotiables.
Yeah, I don't know how to translate that though.
Yeah.
And how it makes sense. But
yeah.
Okay, let's get more like biographical. Biographical, yeah. Yeah. Can you name a pivotal moment in your career?
Sorry?
Pivotal?
Yeah, definitely. As a drummer.
Okay.
Well,
I'll take that.
Drummio.
Right.
If we're talking about the drummy world, going to Drummio, getting invited to Drummio by Jared, and then going over there and performing for 2 days for Drummio, for me was like a crescendo. That's like being on Modern Drummer magazine or something like that. So in terms of the drummy stuff, that's definitely a real high point for me. And then musically, I think the high point for me is I feel very fortunate because I only really do the gigs that I fully resonate with. Like I don't just do any gig. I don't just play with anybody. If I don't feel like it's a good gig for me, then I'll recommend someone else, So I just feel very fortunate that I'm always working with artists that I enjoy working with, So yeah. Does that answer your question?
I think it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I think the Drummio thing is probably the better answer because that was such an apex. It was it was such a big thing that I was like, what do I do now?
Would you change anything about your lesson?
I was Drummio?
Yeah, I was watching it the other day. And I was wondering if you would change anything.
Well, nah. It's a great question because I actually, when he asked me to do it, the only thing I was worried about was, what will I think about it in 10 years' time? Because people always tag me in it. It's on YouTube so people can watch it, like you watched it. And people are going to always remind me about it. They're going to be like, oh man, Drummio. And I'll be like, yeah,
sorry, I did.
Yeah, no.
Actually, you brought it up.
No. But so I was aware of that before I went there. So I just needed to make sure that the content that I put across, I know that I could look at in 10 years' time and be real proud of. I may not necessarily play the same way, but am I going to be proud of it? And so I structured a lesson that I thought was balanced. It covered the foot stuff and the chops and all of that, but I was trying to also show a real practical musician sense of what I do as well. And I'm super, super proud of it. So I watched it, some of it, not the whole thing, but I've watched bits of it, in recent times, and I am really proud of it. Or if someone tags me in it and I see it and I'm like, man, because it's a bit of a blur, to be honest. I don't really remember it that much because I flew over, didn't sleep. It was like 17 hours. And then I couldn't sleep that night in Vancouver. Right. And then the next day I was fasting and I, went live to thousands of their subscribers and did a 45-minute lesson, no take, no retake. And so it's all a bit of a blur. And then the following day I filmed a couple of courses for them as well. And it just happened so fast. And then I was driving down the coast of America with my family, down the West Coast.
So you got to see a bit of Vancouver at least?
Yes, yeah. So I took my whole family with me.
Great.
And they came to Drummio. They went in and went to the studio and stuff. So my wife and my son and my daughter, we checked out Vancouver and then we picked up a car and we drove from Vancouver all the way down to LA. But we came into San Fran, took the kids to San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and then went to LA and went to Disneyland, and over like 3 weeks.
Right.
It was amazing.
Have you ever wished, like at some point in your life, to live somewhere else?
Yeah, I'd love to live in Japan.
Right.
So I've toured Japan, and it's an amazing culture. I could see myself living in Spain as well, just because we love the food. Like me and my wife love food, and we like to eat lovely food, and we like to drink a wine, and we really enjoy that lifestyle. Not the drink.
No,
but
we don't do that either.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So we just like that. We just like good food, good company, and a glass of wine. And the Spanish people do that really well. So the Spanish food is incredible. The wine's great as well. I could see myself living here easily.
Okay, I'll take your coffee, you'll take my wine.
Yeah, great. Sounds perfect.
We can do that.
Yeah, the coffee, wow. Crazy.
Tell me, do you have a fun story about the coffee, or?
Well, more just the story. Like I started working in coffee when I was 11 because my grandparents owned a cafe in New Zealand. So I started working in that cafe. And then right up until 2 years ago, I've worked in coffee in some shape or form. Like I've owned a cafe, but I roasted coffee as well. And only in the last 2 years, I've stopped. So I don't do anything in coffee anymore. When I moved back from Australia back to New Zealand 2 years ago, I stopped doing anything coffee related.
Right.
So this is the first time I've never done coffee.
Do you miss it?
No, not at all. I enjoyed owning. I enjoyed being a business owner.
Right.
I really enjoyed that part of it. But when I moved back to New Zealand and I removed the business ownership, I realized that I don't like working in coffee. I like making friends and family coffee. I make my wife a coffee every morning. I make myself coffee. It's a bit of a ritual for me, and I read my book and things like that. But I don't like working in coffee. But I liked being a business owner.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what to keep.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I've got a big question for you, though.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably the biggest question I've asked. What does success mean to you?
Oh, fulfillment. Feeling fulfilled. Yeah, so that's all success is to me, is waking up every day and feeling fulfilled, feeling satisfied in the work that you do. It doesn't have a monetary value. It doesn't even really matter what it is. And I feel the most successful that I've ever felt right now because I feel so fulfilled in all the work that I'm doing. I've been drumming for a long time, 26 years. And at this point in my life now, I finally feel like everything is how I want it to be in my life. I'm not doing anything I don't want to do. I'm only doing the things I want to do, and I'm really happy and I feel very fulfilled. So success for me is personal fulfillment.
Man, I've got so many questions and then you answer them like that. It's hard for me. Probably hard in this interview. But I've got another big one. What about ego?
Ego?
Yeah, what's your relationship with it?
Well, it's important because the ego is what drives you. The ego is what pushes me to practice. The ego, it all comes from the ego, but there's good ego and bad ego. You know, there's ego that affects me, which keeps me motivated, and then there's my ego that can affect you as well. Because, I don't worry about that ego. I just focus on this ego, the ego that keeps me motivated. And you need it. Like it's a part of the human experience. If you want to be a professional in any realm, in any field, podcasting, cameras, like anything, videography, music, you need an ego, you know, because it is the driving force behind it. So I think it's a necessary, it's kind of like you've got to, with great power comes great responsibility, or you've got to tame the wild animal, you know, because the ego is just this wild beast inside of you and you need it because it keeps you going, but you've got to tame it. You've got to control the beast. Yeah.
Reminds me of, have you read Tim Grover?
No.
He was the coach. He was like the personal coach of Michael Jordan.
Oh, true.
Back in the day, and he trained Dwayne Wade, and I don't know if you're basketball.
A little bit.
Yeah, so Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade, those are like his like more known guys. And he wrote a book called Relentless.
Yes.
And he talks a lot about that stuff.
I should read that.
Yeah. It's a great book.
Yeah, it's
a great book. Very well written, and like the information is like, is there?
Cool, man.
That's the problem. I'm not a big reader.
Okay.
prefer to watch or listen. But that's the only book I've read like multiple times.
So funny you say you're not a big reader. Do you know, up until like 12 or 13 months ago, I was not a big reader as well. I'd maybe read 4 books in my life.
It comes and goes for me.
Okay. But I always wanted to be a reader because a lot of the people that I respect in life read a lot. It was just this common thread that I was seeing in all these great people, some people I know and people that I don't know. The common thread is that they all read. And I was like, man, where does reading fit in my life? I want to read, but if I try and read at night, I just fall asleep straight away. And my parents never read to me when I was younger, so it was never built into me, you know? And then my wife gave me a book that she bought called The Happiest Man on Earth. And it was written by a guy who was in his late 90s who had been through the Holocaust.
Right.
But he wrote it in a way where he was basically, it was always coming from the cup half full. He was always looking at life.
I think I know which book you're talking about.
It's such an easy read too. It's almost written for a kid because it's so easy to read. And I read through it over a few nights actually, and I was like, wow, that was an amazing read. And then right at that time, randomly, I got a personal message on Instagram from, do you know Ryan Holiday?
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
he's great.
Yeah.
Big fun.
Yeah, and he does Stoicism books, right? He sent me in it. I don't know if it was him, but his Instagram page sent me in a message and said, would you be interested in a early copy of my new book, Courage is Calling? And I'd already looked into Stoicism because it's very similar sort of stuff, you know. Stoicism, I've done a lot of, I think I fundamentally have a Stoic sort of baseline.
Heido, which you know?
Yeah, Heido, yeah.
Yeah, when we did an interview, he was the first interview actually. We spoke about Stoicism.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Stoicism's great. It's just a great way to look at the world, you know. Don't get caught up in that. Don't get caught up in this. Stay here. Yeah. Be now. And I said, yeah, I'd love to have your book. And I didn't think that he was going to send it out. But then sure enough, a week later, his book turned up, Courage is Calling. And so I was like, wow, an author sent me their book. Awesome. It hadn't even been released yet. So I decided the next day I was going to get up early, an hour earlier than I usually get up, so I could read for an hour. And that's when it started, like the reading at the start of the day thing. I was getting up at maybe like 4:30 or something, and I brew a pot of coffee, and I'd go upstairs, light a candle, and I started reading this book. And I just realized that my mind is like super active at that time. I can remember everything. Retention's really good. And it was just easy, effortless, you know. And so from then on, man, I bought more Ryan Holiday books. So I bought maybe 3 more books. Ego is the Way. I can't even remember them now.
Ego is your enemy.
Yeah, Ego is your enemy.
Something is the Way. That's the one I've read like completely.
They were the first, when I started reading, they were the first books that I read. And then those books led to more books. And then the people that I listened to led to more books. And now I've got this bookshelf like, I know it's like this long. Yeah. And I've read all of them. And I've got 2 books in my Malcolm Gladwell books in my bag now. My wife bought me for my birthday. I'm reading Blink. And I've got the other one, what's it called? Outliers as well. And, you know, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, which I think is, I think it's an amazing...
You can swear that.
Oh, okay. I think it's an amazing read. I'm actually reading that for the 3rd time right now.
Nice.
Because I've been sort of seeing the value in repetition for reading too. If you read something that you really like, reread it.
Yeah.
Because you learn something more about yourself the more you read the same thing over and over again. And man, I honestly think that reading has been the biggest and the best change to me in the last 10 years, at least, is dedicating the time to reading. And back to what you said, you're not a big reader. I wasn't a big reader either, but I started reading every day because, you know, I'm not really into exercise. Yeah, but you can do it. I don't really want to, you know, but you can. So I wasn't a big reader either, but I just started reading, and guess what? I got better at reading, and then my enjoyment and my love for reading started to grow. And now it's part of my day, man. I have to read in some shape or form every day to feel fulfilled, you know, like it's that whole thing. Yeah. Yeah, I love it.
Is that moving forward?
Moving forward is exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Back to the beginning though. Like, how would you introduce yourself now to someone that doesn't know you? Musically, drumming wise.
Yeah, I just say my name's Stan Bicknell and I'm a professional drummer. And then if they say, what do you do? I say, I work with artists and musicians with music that I identify with. I mean, I used to teach a little bit too, so I can say that as well. But yeah, that's essentially what I say. I've got a couple of bands that are my bands, and then I work with a couple of artists as well, and that's about it. And I'm happy.
What's the industry? What's the scene like in New Zealand?
It's a small country. There's only 3 major cities there, so your tour can be done in a weekend. You know, I think that the New Zealand music industry is the government's very supportive. So there's lots of money there's lots of funding, which I think is awesome. So, you know, New Zealand music's always on the radio, always trying to push, because we're so heavily influenced by Australia and America and the UK as well. But New Zealand makes a point. I think there has to be a certain percentage of New Zealand music always on the radio, which I think is amazing. There are some amazing musicians in New Zealand. So some of the guys that I'm playing with now are people that I've been influenced by in New Zealand for the last 20 years. So it's really cool to move back there and now be working with these artists who I've been listening to and respected for so many years.
Right.
It's amazing. Like, it's actually a little bit surreal. So I think there's an incredible, healthy scene there. Lots of good musicians, lots of good music. The summers are long and everyone likes to have a drink. So music's always on, you know.
Nice.
It's a big part of the culture there.
Sounds great. Here, I mean, if you want to move to Spain for the food and the wine, that's great. But probably not the music industry. How about, I'm running out of questions though.
That's right.
Usually never happens. What about, see, I don't want to ask that. But I feel like I have to.
Go on.
Because you also say that you don't want to, you know, you want to choose what you listen up to. What about drumming though? How do you stay inspired, and how do you choose your influences in that way?
Yeah, so interesting. So with drummers in particular, I don't listen to a lot of drummers anymore. I think because I am real confident in being inspired by ideas that will just happen naturally now. So I work on concepts and techniques and stuff that improve my playing, and then they will. Creativity, I've said, is 2 things. Creativity is influence, right, and your ability on the drum kit. So if you're not feeling creative, go listen to something new, or go for a walk, or go be inspired, or you need to raise the bar of your playing. So go work on a technique, go work on an idea. So I find if I'm working on technique all the time in some shape, so double pedal, I don't play a lot of double pedal in bands, but I'm always working on it, my hands and stuff, then new ideas just seem to form because you're working on one of those 2 things, and that's where creativity and inspiration comes from.
What are you working on at the moment?
Double pedal.
Nice.
Trying to balance out the left foot, do my technique with the left foot as well, and just have good control over it. And then with my hands, I'm always working on single stroke, just trying to get my single stroke better, more power, less effort, you know, more freedom, control, trying to move the mind out of the way and just flow a little bit better. But I also like to be I like to know what I'm doing, and I like to know where I'm going as well. So yeah.
You can become now like the left foot guy.
Yeah, I know. That's just taking ages.
I bet.
Yeah.
So what about goals? Are you goal oriented? Are you
massively
future focused?
Oh yeah. Like, bro, you'll love this. This is my goal card.
Right.
I've had this in my pocket since January.
You carry that with you,
yeah, man,
the whole time.
And I touch it every day.
Right.
Like if I go into my pocket and I'm grabbing my keys or my phone, my goals are, I'll touch it and I'll instantly think about all my goals.
How do you set your goals?
Some of them are short term and some of them are long term. So the short term ones are obviously things that I want to achieve more immediately. And then the long term are like the helicopter view on your life, you know, and because I'm married and I've got kids and stuff, I've got goals and plans for me and my wife. And so, yeah, I'm very much a goal person. I write down goals all the time, whether it's just what I'm doing today. I think you need to, man. If you're not writing goals down, then you're not going anywhere. I know that sounds real harsh, but I fully believe that.
Yeah, if you know, like to a sailor that doesn't know where he's going, any wind is favorable.
Oh, hard out. Yeah, exactly. That's such a great way to put it.
I don't know how it goes, like the actual saying.
No, but you're right. Yeah, exactly. And it's just this moving something from the mind to paper. There's something that happens in the physical translation of it, anyone can think about something, but moving it to paper, you've committed to it. You've taken that next step, you know? And so, yeah, I'm a firm believer in goals.
Can you share any? Like in a year time, I'll check it, see if you've done it.
Well, what I will tell you, so I've got 4 goals on here that are goals to do with me and my drumming, and then also me and my wife, our like long-term goals. But at the very bottom of it, I've got 5 words that I say every day. So they're like my mantra, I suppose. And I didn't get this idea from anywhere. I just sort of, these 5 words just kept on popping up in my head. And then when I think about these words, I get a visual representation in my head of those words as well. So the 5 words are health, well-being, family, wealth, and progress. Health, well-being, family, wealth, and progress. So health just means physical health. So health with exercise, eating well, health, well-being. So that's all in the mind. So reading, staying calm, in control of my emotions. Well-being affects the people around me as well. So look after me, and then that will look after my relationships, you know. Health, well-being, family. So I just think of my wife and my daughter and my son, and that's my family, you know. And I just think about them and how grateful I am for them, and how lucky I am. So health, well-being, family, wealth. I just imagine rain, money, like money just raining on me. Seriously, I just imagine, like I visualize that. And then progress. I've got this thing, and it's so weird. Like I've been saying health, well-being, family, wealth, progress multiple times a day since the start of the year, right? Since January. And when I get to the progress part, I imagine that I'm looking at myself on a stage playing the drums, and I'm just doing fast single strokes around the kit. That's the visualization that I have. And it was so bizarre, man. Like I was on stage today, and I was like, fuck, is this the stage that I've been like thinking about? So weird. Like it actually felt like this is the stage that I've been thinking about whenever I think. I'm looking over my right-hand shoulder, and the drum kit is exactly the way that it was today, because that's the way that my kit's set up. But it was a theater in my mind. And yeah, health, well-being, family, wealth, progress, they all have visual representations for me. And so I think that there's a lot of power in repetition. And if I ever feel, like in all honesty, if I ever feel like I'm losing the battle with my mind, and maybe I'm feeling a bit shitty about something, or something's starting to get to me, I just start saying health, well-being, family, wealth, progress, health, well-being, family, wealth, progress, health, well-being, family, wealth, progress. And one of those visual things will pop in my head. So health, I'll just think of the plus. The health cross, yeah. Well-being, I just imagine meditation, simple. Health, well-being, family, I just imagine hugging my family. That's all I imagine. And then the rain of money, and then just playing the drums. And they'll always just pop into my head. And then I don't feel upset anymore. I feel like I've got control back over. Because emotions, you know, like it's up to me if I want to feel happy or sad. You can control it, you know. Sometimes you don't feel like you can, but you actually can.
That's a big conversation though.
Yeah, I know. And this is a drumming podcast. But these are the things that are really important to me, and it's the stuff that gets me through on a daily basis. And I feel like I'm only scratching the surface too, man. Like I'm super excited about the next 5 to 10 years and where this sort of way of thinking is going to take me. Because I tell you what, my life has got infinitely better just with these slight modifications. I was already heading this way, but just really committing to the process and writing things down and the reading and all of that. Honestly, man, I'm not joking. My life's just gone from here to here. And I don't mean in financially. There has been definitely some financial gains. I just mean in fulfillment, man. I just feel like, I don't know, man. I just feel that there is a direct correlation, cause and effect. The universe takes note of these things, you know, as waffly as that sounds, you know. Yeah. Man, I'm being real open, eh?
Yeah, I know.
Because I'm tired.
I know. I've got one final question there. And I've been asking this to everyone. I like to get meta and talk about like principles and stuff, but I also want to get active and, you know, half the people like have something to do after they listen to the interview. Yeah. So what is a challenge that you can give them? Like, you mean something to do? Drumming related or? Doesn't have to. We've barely talked about drumming anyway.
Something tangible.
Yeah.
Well, it's so hard because it depends on the individual way. Like,
I know.
Like if people want to get better in life, it's easy. It's only a few things you need. It's either going to be like gaining more knowledge in something, looking after yourself better, giving yourself more time in the day to do something. You know, like one of those three things are going to change your life dramatically. So knowledge is power, without a doubt. Knowledge is power. And we've got the world resources in our pockets now on our phones. Libraries have been around for years. All the information's there. You know, books on how to get healthier, books on how to become wealthy, books on how to get skilled in a craft or whatever, you know. So knowledge, health, and what was the other one I said? I can't remember. But, and like making small changes, like get up a little bit earlier and things like that.
Yeah, just do one small change tomorrow.
One small change tomorrow, get up a little bit earlier.
Just do it today.
Do you know that if you get up an hour earlier, right, every day, just 1 hour earlier, that is 7 40-hour work weeks of free time a year. So 1 hour earlier a day equates to 7 40-hour work weeks a year of time that you've just created.
That's a lot.
Think about that, man.
Yeah, how much money can you make with that?
That's insane.
If you just have one more hour,
one
you
more
get
hour every day. That's 352 hours. 52, 55, 56. Oh my God. 356 hours that you've given yourself now, just getting up 1 hour earlier. And that's 7 40-hour work weeks of free time that you can dedicate to getting healthier, learning a new skill. And you're only ever 3 to 5 years away from being the best at something, like being an absolute master at it. So if you dedicated that time to a new skill, man, in 3 to 5 years' time, you will be an excellent master at that skill or whatever it is. Yeah. Get up earlier.
So there you go.
Get up earlier.
I'm very mindful of our time, and I know you have to go, and I have to go, and the cameras have to go. This is the last one.
Yeah.
Happy to have you.
Thank you.
And
happy to be here.
Hopefully you come back.
Yeah, man. And I really enjoyed the chat, bro. Legend.
Wonderful.